I remarried to Theodore, a younger man, and we set up a new home together. Just when I was looking forward to starting our fun life together, an unexpected event occurred.
My eldest son and his wife will be moving in with us.
Theodore's words left me in disbelief. He planned to let his son, Kai, and Kai's wife, Mia, from his previous marriage, live in the house I had purchased.
It's a blessing to have more family, right?
Mia's cheeky comment infuriated me. And on the day they were moving in, an angry Mia called me.
Oh, you figured it out already?
I smiled like a witch. In fact, I never intended to live with them from the beginning. My name is Madison Smith, 51 years old. I met Theodore, who is 8 years younger than me, the year before last, and we got married quickly after about 6 months of dating. Marrying a younger man after turning 50 might have drawn various criticisms from society a decade ago, but there was a reason for it. My first marriage was arranged. My ex-husband's family was wealthy, and although he was modest in appearance, he was a gentle and kind person.
I'll work outside, so you can relax at home,
he said. True to his words, I quit my job and became a full-time homemaker. A year into our marriage, before I could start feeling bored, I was fortunate to have our daughter, Kinsley, which placed me in a relatively happy family life. However, this life did not last long. About 8 years into our marriage, my ex-husband died in a car accident. The shock of losing my partner so suddenly, and the anxiety of having to raise Kinsley alone darkened my life instantly. However, fortunately, my ex-husband had left us with enough wealth, so we didn't face financial hardships. Kinsley was a caring and solid child, which made raising her less difficult. Despite the sudden misfortune, looking back, I feel my life was relatively blessed as Kinsley grew up well. Yet, sometimes, I pondered the possibilities of another life. What if I had refused the arranged marriage? Would my life be completely different now? But dwelling on such thoughts was pointless. I had to move on. After my ex-husband passed away, I started working from home as a writer for cooking magazines. Thanks to a former boss who offered me the job. Working from home meant less hassle, but also fewer social interactions. That's how I settled into a monotonous life of childcare and work. Even after Kinsley moved out, my life remained the same. Waking up at a fixed time, working, occasionally having meetings, eating the food I prepared myself, working again, and then sleeping. Amid these repetitive days, I met Theodore, a freelance photographer, through an editor of a magazine. Theodore, in his 40s and younger than me, was a stylish and attractive man. Both of us were divorced. I had a 28-year-old daughter, and he had an adult son who was about to get married.
Let's enjoy our second life to the fullest,
Theodore suggested, and I decided to marry him without much thought. He was completely different from my ex-husband, and I found his lightheartedness refreshing. Theodore was very positive from the beginning, familiar with fashionable places and lively spots I didn't know about. Being with him felt like turning back time. Wanting to do something for him, I invited him over and entertained him with my best homemade dishes.
I'm not sure if you'll like it, but I do enjoy cooking. This is really good. If I'm gonna marry, it's gotta be to someone who can cook well.
Being praised for my cooking made me incredibly happy.
For Theodore, I'd make delicious meals every day. Really? Then, I'll take you up on that every day.
And so, our married life began with Theodore coming to my place. However, once we started living together as husband and wife, some concerns arose. Of course, I was prepared for some discomfort since we were two strangers living together.
You haven't talked much about work recently. Is there something worrying you?
I tried to casually ask about his work. Theodore, while lying on the couch, answered.
Actually, I'm on a break from work right now. There are various reasons, but I'm getting living expenses from my parents, so don't worry.
It seems Theodore was nearly unemployed. But since we weren't in a relationship with plans to have and raise children, I decided not to pry any further into his private life. I wanted our second life to be free from domestic constraints and to enjoy it with a lover's excitement. A few months into living with Theodore, he suddenly said he wanted to move. My apartment is located in a suburb more than an hour's train ride from downtown. After losing my first husband, I moved here seeking a more suitable environment to raise Kinsley and had continued living here since. Compared to the city, it had better security, was blessed with nature, and was a place I liked, suitable for living from children to the elderly.
If we live in a place with so many old folks, you'll turn into an old lady in no time,
he said with a laugh. His words stuck with me, but I thought admitting to being angry about being called old would be acknowledging I was old, so I asked with a smile.
Then, where do you want to live? Somewhere within 10 minutes of Brooklyn would be nice.
But wouldn't that be a bit too noisy?
It's fine. You know how they say, once you live there, you'll get used to it. The most important thing about a place is its convenience.
Feeling a bit uneasy about his desire for convenience, despite not working, I thought perhaps this town really wasn't the right fit for Theodore's vibe. Living in a place he liked might also motivate him to be more proactive about work. Besides, the stylish vibe he had when we first met was no longer there. For his sake, I decided to consider his wish. From that day, I started looking for a house for us to live in. However, I felt guilty about using the wealth inherited from my first husband for my new husband. After much deliberation, I called Kinsley for advice. As I mentioned before, she had already become independent and was now working abroad. When her father passed away, she was a girl I wanted to protect, but now she had grown into a woman who is brisk in her work. I braced myself for rejection when I consulted her, but her answer was indifferent.
The property Dad left is yours, Mom. I've already moved out, so you don't need to worry about it.
While I was happy to see she had grown into an independent woman, it also felt a bit formal. It was the same when I remarried. She only said congratulations, without asking about the other person. However, if being told to be happy about her independence, that's the end of it. Perhaps when considering my own life, the fact that I first consult my distant daughter shows I haven't managed to let go myself.
I understand, Kinsley. I'll live my own life,
I declared firmly.
But just don't have any regrets, Mom.
Kinsley said just that before hanging up the phone.
The only thing you shouldn't do is have regrets.
Those words stuck in my heart like a needle. Following that, Theodore and I continued to look at various properties together. Watching him happily inspect each one made me happy too. However, the brand new, garden-included homes in the area he wanted were way too expensive, way out of our budget. In the end, I had to ask Theodore to compromise, and we got introduced to a reasonably nice pre-owned property by someone I knew.
It takes 20 minutes from downtown? Well, it's better than living in that retirement home-like town before, so this is fine.
Theodore's words were laced with venom. He didn't mean to be harmful, and I used to laugh it off, but lately, it's been bothering me a lot. Maybe the romantic feelings have faded more than before. This sudden thought made me feel insecure. Theodore, do you love me? I blurted out a childish question. I knew a woman over 50 shouldn't be saying things like this. But I was scared to let go of the happiness in front of me, and it just slipped out. Hearing my anxious words, Theodore suddenly looked at me kindly.
What are you talking about? I married you because I love you. And Madison, you are the best partner I've ever had.
Whether it was a lie or truth, those words made me feel reassured again. Since I decided to live with Theodore, I have to trust him more than anyone. And so, we set up a new home closer to downtown. Living in a house wasn't bad once we got started. I could grow some vegetables in the garden, and having a flower bed made the whole house look more vibrant. If it was just the two of us living a simple life together, I didn't care where we were. Just as I was thinking this, Theodore dropped a bombshell.
Living close to downtown is convenient, right? But don't you think a house is too big for just the two of us?
I asked back, puzzled. What do you mean?
Living in a big house just the two of us will get depressing. But, Theodore, you were the one who wanted a detached house, remember? Yeah, that's why I thought it would be nice to live with everyone. So, in 3 weeks.
Theodore paused.
My eldest son and his wife will be moving in.
He said it with an innocent laugh.
The eldest son and his wife, you mean Kai and his folks?
He had a son named Kai from his previous marriage, but after the divorce, the child was raised by his ex-wife back at her hometown. I heard he had grown up and recently got married. I believe his wife's name was Mia.
They want to live in New York, you know. Young folks from the countryside always dream about the city. I haven't done much fatherly stuff, so the least I can do is fulfill Kai's wish.
Theodore spoke lightly, but I felt a great distrust towards him. Could it be that marrying me and getting me to buy a house was his goal all along? If he never loved me and was only after my wealth, would I become disposable after buying the house? The thought brought an unprecedented panic. There were times he wouldn't come home for days without contact, or he'd ignore my messages. I had suspected there might be another woman. Yet, since he always came back home, I told myself he just had his social life. But I couldn't just overlook it this time.
What are you talking about, Theodore? That's ridiculous. This house was bought for us two to live in, with my money.
When I retorted angrily, he replied with a thin smile.
Why are you so mad? I'm not talking about bringing in strangers. I just want to live with my son, Kai. If you love me, you'll come to love Kai too. I don't know anything about them, and I've never even met them. Then you can get to know them from now on. Everyone is a stranger at first. Plus, Kai's wife, Mia, is a good girl. You can think of her as a daughter. You've been lonely ever since Kinsley left, right?
My indignation reached its peak. What infuriated me the most was being thought of by Theodore as a lonely woman.
Abandoned? Kinsley became independent and left the nest. I'm not lonely at all. In fact, I was happy for her. Don't pretend like you understand my feelings.
Even as I shouted in earnest, Theodore remained calm. Probably accustomed to confrontations.
But you must have felt lonely, losing your previous husband and being away from your daughter, right? That's why you remarried at your age. It's better to admit you're feeling lonely. Besides, a home is better when it's filled with a lively family.
Theodore said this with a constant smile, leaving me at a loss for words. Maybe I did feel lonely. After losing my previous husband and raising Kinsley on my own, I felt like the focus of my life had blurred. Maybe that's why I ended up wanting a romance that could change my life, to refocus. After pondering for a while, I said,
I understand what you're saying. But at least, I want to get along with Kai and his family before we start living together. Can you give me their contact information?
Then, Theodore, looking pleased, made a phone call.
Hey, Mia. Madison says it's okay. She also wants to get along with everyone before we all start living together.
Theodore called Mia first, instead of his son, Kai. This was probably because Mia, being his daughter-in-law, held more sway in the dynamics. My previous enthusiasm had completely faded, replaced by a calm determination to unfold a scenario quite the opposite of what had been. I wanted to bridge the gap as much as possible before they moved in, to maximize the impact on them. Now, I was determined to make them regret taking a single woman like me lightly. From that day, I started exchanging messages with Mia daily. It seemed Mia was the one particularly keen on living in New York. Pretending to be kind, I took photos of trendy spots and places young people might like in the city, sending them to her almost daily. Mia, unaware of my true feelings, always responded with excitement.
Wow! I've always wanted to go to that shop. Then, when you come to New York, I'll take you to many places. I didn't go out much with my daughter, Kinsley. So, can I think of you as my own daughter? Of course. Forget about your daughter who went far away, and think of me as your daughter.
Mia's words made me feel insincere.
Family is a blessing, isn't it?
Mia, misunderstanding that she was favored. She must be innocent, not thinking she's doing anything wrong. Just a child, expressing her wishes without really understanding the world. Thinking this way makes swallowing the situation a bit easier. Or maybe, contemplating on love and living for it, I wasn't much different.
Sure. You know what? I'll provide you with a whole set of household items. Since you're starting a life in a new place, everything needs to be new.
Mia exclaimed with joy, "Thank you, mother-in-law." If it were Kinsley, she wouldn't have reacted this way to the offer of buying her anything. She had always been considerate towards me, a single mother. Losing her father in elementary school, she must have felt loneliness more than anyone. Yet, she never once told me she was lonely. Even when I asked what she wanted for her birthday, she would only say, "I just want to eat your cooking," leaving me clueless about what she really wanted, and I never ended up giving her a present. Kinsley was a child who always put others first, had many friends, but I wish she had relied on me, her mother, a little. She seemed too mature for her age. Mia has the opposite personality. She must have been pampered by her parents, and not just them, but also by Kai and Theodore. That's why she can brazenly move into someone else's home. Thinking back, it was the same when Theodore arrived. He just showed up at my apartment one day and made himself at home as if it were the most natural thing in the world. At that time, I was so in love with him that I even found his actions endearing, but now it feels like a distant memory. The numerous photos handed to me by the detective agency today have completely shattered my heart. As expected, Theodore had cheated on me multiple times after we got married. Although it was I knew at moment, the undeniable evidence hit differently than mere suspicions. In front of the detective agency staff, I couldn't help but cry. I thought I wouldn't be upset about something like cheating anymore, but contrary to my will, tears kept flowing. Like a stray cat that gets fed in various places, Theodore cheated with multiple partners. I wanted to tear up the photos of him with other women, but they are important evidence. And the naive thoughts that have led me this far are something I must confront head-on. Unaware of my feelings, Theodore spent his day lazily watching TV as if nothing was amiss.
Compared to the US, there are a lot of conflicts in foreign countries. It'd be better if everyone just lived in harmony, helping each other out. You think so too, right, Madison?
He spoke to me as I diligently cleaned around him. A little while ago, I might have found such behavior endearing, but now it only annoys me. However, I kept my composure and responded,
"Yes, you're right. If everyone helped each other out, perhaps there would be no conflicts in this world." Exactly. No one wants to fight, right? It's enough to just enjoy the moment and live life.
Theodore yawned as he said this. It's true that no one wants conflicts, but it seems he never learned that sincerity and consideration for others are necessary for that. I remembered the sincerity of my previous husband. He didn't have the charm that Theodore has. But he was very sincere towards me. Not just to me, but it seemed he was sincere in all aspects. He might not have been exceptionally popular, but he always had a steady smile and rarely showed emotional fluctuations. Maybe that's why he passed away so early. It's often said that the good ones leave us too soon. And perhaps immature people like Theodore and me are left to live out our days to the end.
Hey, Theodore. Before Kai and Mia arrive, I want to do a big cleanup, so could you leave the house for a while? Why don't you go on a trip with them? Then, you can all come back together on moving day. I'll make sure the house is lovely for your return.
I said this and placed an envelope filled with money in front of him. He slowly picked it up and looked inside.
You said you hadn't done much fatherly stuff, right? Why not take them on a trip?
Then, Theodore looked up at me with a grateful smile.
That's a good idea, thanks, Madison. I think they'll be happy.
I watched his back as he prepared to leave the house. Farewell, Theodore. I muttered quietly as his figure grew smaller in the distance. And then, the day Kai and Mia were supposed to move in arrived. However, I wasn't waiting to welcome them. I had left the house early in the morning and was on my way to the airport. In fact, Kinsley was finishing her job overseas and was returning home today. Her return was unexpected, but to be honest, it gave me a great sense of relief. After everything that's happened, my heart has been unstable, but I'm sure that with Kinsley by my side, I can return to my true self. While feeling happy about seeing my daughter after a long time, a message arrives on my phone as I head to the airport. However, I pretended not to notice and continued on the train. As I ignored the messages that kept coming, eventually the phone began to ring. I answered it as soon as I arrived in the airport lobby. It was from Mia.
Hey, Auntie. Where are you?
So, it seems I'm not mother-in-law to them but auntie. They never thought of me as family after all. All our conversations were just a sham. Then, there's no need for me to feel guilty. I felt a surge of strength in my temples.
The key doesn't work, and there's a for sale sign on the door. You didn't lie to us, did you?
Mia shouted. The call was on speaker, so I could hear the voices around her.
It's no use. We can't get in anywhere.
Theodore's anguished voice could be heard. I could almost see him panicking because the key he had was useless, but I felt no pain in my heart. Knowing no one could see my face, I exaggeratedly lifted the corners of my mouth into a smile. It must have looked like the smile of a wicked witch, displeasing to anyone.
Oh, you found out?
I said mockingly, with a mean chuckle, as if my feelings could be conveyed through the phone.
What do you mean by this?
Mia asked back, her anger evident. You should be able to figure it out, shouldn't you? You and I are complete strangers. Why would you think you could live in a house I bought? How naive. Then, Theodore's voice came through. Let me talk, Mia. You're on speaker, just speak up. I can hear you just fine. I can hear all of your panicked voices, everything. Half of this act is just that, an act. But my genuine half must seem like madness to them.
Madison! What is all this about? Our house is listed for sale.
Just as it says.
And it's not our house, it's my house. I've sent your belongings to your parents' house. By now, they should have received them along with photos of your affairs. Oh, and I included the divorce papers, so go ahead and file them.
Despite the shameless way of sending the proof of his son's infidelity to his parents, the gentle Theodore surprisingly didn't get angry.
Madison, are you leaving me?
He sounded so weak, almost ready to cry. His unexpected reaction took me by surprise. If he had gotten angry, I could have retaliated with the harsh words I had prepared. Trying to elicit sympathy is just pathetic.
Crying like that won't help. If anyone should be crying, it's me.
I snapped back firmly.
Dad, are you okay?
This worried voice must be Kai's. He doesn't seem to have anything to say to me directly.
Don't cry, Dad. Stay strong.
Kai was only concerned about his father. Maybe he's gentle and lacks resolve, just like his father. That's why he ended up marrying someone as brazen as Mia. Instead of just lamenting, Mia takes a bold stance.
You think you can do this and get away with it, Auntie? Because you said you'd provide the furniture, I almost got rid of all my stuff. This isn't what we agreed on. What are you going to do about this?
I never said to throw away your furniture. That was your doing. Besides, none of you ever thought of me as family, did you? There was no trust to begin with, so there were no promises. I let out the lines I had prepared in my head one after another.
Pretending to be nice while being so cruel. You're the worst. That goes both ways, doesn't it, Mia? Anyway, I just sold the house I bought. Theodore is getting divorced, and there's no connection between us anymore. It's your fault for trusting that man.
Then Mia's anger turned towards Kai.
I can't do this anymore. Kai, I want a divorce. I married you because you said we could live in a house in New York.
Mia screamed in a frenzy. However, Kai just kept apologizing. I couldn't help but speak up to Kai, who seemed completely unreliable.
Kai, I shouldn't be the one to say this as an outsider, but you should think more carefully about who you marry. Especially, you shouldn't judge people by their appearances. It's too late for regrets now.
Then Theodore cut in.
I'd be in trouble if you left me, Madison. My parents cut me off. With no house, what am I supposed to do starting tomorrow? Please, come back.
I was utterly dumbfounded by his words. Theodore, at 40, still relying on his parents' allowances as if it was the norm. And what's more terrifying is that I allowed such a person. They say love is blind, but when love fades, it feels like hell. Despite Kinsley telling me not to have any regrets, the feeling of regret was overwhelming.
Sorry, but Kinsley is coming back from overseas today. She says she's going to work in Japan now. So, I've decided to live with Kinsley. I'm not lonely anymore, and besides, you have plenty of places to feed, right? You should go there.
However, I knew he had nowhere to go. Because I went to his affairs places and showed them the photos of him cheating. Not a single woman wanted to continue seeing Theodore after being confronted with evidence from his legal wife. His presence was lighter than a stray cat.
There's nowhere to go, you see. No one is answering their phones. Then you should go to your parents' house. After all, I've sent your stuff there. Anyway, make sure to file the divorce papers quickly. If you have any complaints, I'm ready to face them. I don't mind going to court.
Suddenly, my vision began to blur. Like a camera losing focus, the scene in front of me grew fuzzy. Before everything faded, I said, "Well, goodbye," and hung up the phone. Looking at the dimmed screen of my cell phone, I noticed for the first time the glistening tears that had fallen. I went to the restroom to carefully wipe away my tears. But Kinsley, having reunited with me after so long, immediately noticed something was wrong. She's always been sensitive to people's moods.
"Mom, did something happen?"
Kinsley asked worriedly. I tried to maintain my composure as I answered.
"I haven't told you yet, but I'm thinking of getting a divorce. So, let's live together. Just us, in a house with a garden in the city."
Then Kinsley's expression darkened. I feared for a moment she would refuse, knowing her strong independence. She has her own life. And my presence could be a hindrance to her. But the next moment, Kinsley said something surprising.
"Actually, there's something I haven't told you, Mom. I've been scared to say it, but I need to tell you. I'm pregnant."
According to her, she had been dating a foreign man for about a year, thinking of marriage in the future. But as soon as he found out about the pregnancy, he broke up with her unilaterally. Shocked, Kinsley considered terminating the pregnancy. However, after much deliberation, she couldn't bear to end an innocent life. Eventually, she decided to quit her job and return to the US. I was speechless with surprise, never imagining Kinsley was going through such a thing. In my daughter's eyes, burdened with so much, there was a faint sparkle. I hugged the anxious-looking Kinsley and said,
"I'm so happy to be having a grandchild. I'm sure he's celebrating in heaven too. Let's raise this child together with all the love we have."
Then Kinsley burst into tears like breaking a dam, showing me tears I had never seen from her before. Alone in her struggles, having decided to bear this child, I hugged Kinsley tightly.
"There's nothing to be anxious about. Let's do our best together."
With care, I brought her back home from the airport, heavy with child. Of course, there was no one else there. Now, this house was just for Kinsley and me.
"Mom, there's a for sale sign on this house."
Kinsley noticed with a worried look. I returned a smile and briskly removed the for sale sign.
"That was just a bluff. From today, this is our home, just for us two. I got everything new in preparation for your return. I even made a lot of food today, especially since you need to eat well now that you're pregnant."
Relieved, Kinsley stepped into the entrance. I followed her, carrying her suitcase into the house.
"Welcome back, Kinsley. I'm home, Mom."
We shared a smile.
"And welcome, baby."
Saying so, I gently touched Kinsley's belly, which was not yet noticeably round. Though invisible to the eye, I could feel the new life's heartbeat under my hand. A few days later, the divorce with Theodore was finalized. After being disowned by his parents and everyone else due to this incident, he tried to contact me several times, but I ignored all his attempts. He should be grateful I didn't demand alimony. Then, I heard news of his arrest. He was caught breaking into his first wife's home and stealing money, apparently not his first offense. I also heard rumors that he was suspected of mysterious thefts at the magazine company he used to work for, which led to him being ostracized from the industry. That's probably why he couldn't get work. I thought he was harmlessly irresponsible, but he was actually engaging in criminal activities. Continuing a relationship with him might have been dangerous. Moreover, Kai and Mia were also being questioned for their involvement in his crimes. It seems Mia always had a strained relationship with her mother, constantly at odds. While Theodore was considered the mastermind behind this incident, I couldn't help but think Mia was pulling the strings from behind. Either way, I hope they confess during the interrogation and pay for their crimes soon. Kinsley's belly grew visibly larger. Even though I had gone through childbirth myself, watching it from the side overwhelmed me with its mystery. The thought of this growing child brought me joy every day. Additionally, something wonderful happened. I was approached with a book publishing offer. My articles and recipes had garnered enough interest from readers to be compiled into a book. Naturally, as a relatively unknown writer, publishing a book was beyond my wildest dreams, so I eagerly accepted the offer. And so, I became a grandmother. When Kinsley and the baby came home after a successful delivery, spring had arrived at our house, and the flowers I planted during the winter were blooming wildly. The garden I had sown was sprouting new buds, promising growth. Supporting Kinsley as a single mother, I imagined our second life together would be full of joy. A beautiful spring sky expanded in my heart.